We are off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Jenner Cormier. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Good morning. Before we turn the mics on, I asked Jenner if this was commonplace for him to be in the restaurant this early. And the reason I asked that is because last night I was confirming with Jenner in the DMs of Instagram that we were still on. And I think you responded at quarter to 12.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing the math with the realities of what this industry usually is for people like yourself. It usually is late nights and early mornings. So for you, paint me the picture and listeners a picture of how you do this day in and day out, because a lot of listeners are guests and the people that use this industry and are users of this space, but they're not actually in it necessarily.
Yeah.
So someone like you who's been doing this for quite a while, we'll get into your history in this space in a minute, but how do you keep it up day after day? What is your recharge formula when you literally have sometimes 7 hours, maybe less, from closing shop, getting home, to coming back and being in the space? What does that look like for you?
I think the motivating force behind being able to push through sheer and utter exhaustion is the love for what we do, to be honest. I'm usually here 9:30 or so every single morning, and some nights I'm here till 2 a.m. So it's tough, but you do it because you love it. You don't do it for, I don't know, notoriety or, the sake of having a restaurant. I think that can get lost a lot of times and becomes this glamorous thing that people dream about or imagine. But it's, this is where my future has led me. And I met my wife, and that was amazing. And we kind of had this dream of opening our own thing with our own inspiration to create this magical space. And it sounds just like a fairy tale or a little over the top, but having the key to unlock the door every day, I think just like really is a reality check, because it's funny, my wife and I talk about it all the time. We'll be 2 years that we've been open, but 3 years in this space come March, and every day I'm like, oh well, when's the boss coming back? Sometimes it's weird, because you slug it out in this industry, and me being a bartender by trade and she's a cook by trade, you don't really see that combo very often get to a point where they can successfully open a restaurant on their own. They do it under someone else. So the fact that we are the two people that run this place it's weird some days, and I still have to kind of, check myself a little bit to realize that we have a team of 17 people that rely on us. And, it's crazy though. It's like this blank canvas to do whatever you want in a lot of senses. And just really, you have to stay motivated. You got to take care of your body. Yeah. Excuse me. I don't drink hardly ever. I drink a lot of coffee. I don't really eat very much, to be honest. We usually eat at 8:30 in the morning, and then, somewhere around 6 or 7 at night, and then usually close to midnight. Like I don't really eat. So, and that's a problem. Yeah. But, it's this kind of motivating driving force to be creative and continuously push yourself. And, I really am constantly not looking to what's around us, but kind of looking forward. Oh. And we're always inspired by, small stuff. We have some really great relationships with a lot of the local farmers and producers and fish purveyors and brokers and all these crazy things. And they're always throwing really interesting ingredients at us. So that really helps keep the brain moving. Yeah. I think that's the reason why I enjoy what I do so much, is that it's so much creative force all the time. So
I feel like you've mentioned a lot there, and we'll unpack a bunch of it. But one thing for me that resonated, and I'll use my terms to kind of paraphrase what you said. It's like the golf shot, and my dad's sitting off camera here and is an avid golfer. But for me, I don't golf a lot. But when I do go out on the golf course, one of the 99 shots that I take will be that one shot that brings me back. Yep. So for you, it's the key in the door, or it's the creative outlets, or it's those things that maybe re-energize you on those days when you're probably a bit exhausted to keep doing it. And I think in this industry, you need that, especially in your position in a leadership role, if you will, and being the one that is responsible for these people and their livelihoods, that aspect, but also taking care of your customers. Yeah. You need to have something that's going to be the juice worth the squeeze, if you don't mind, like, for that paraphrase. So for me, I was thinking of the golf shot. Like, what is that one thing that brings you back and re-energizes you to do it another day? Because I say it so often on this show. This industry, I feel, is the most thankless of all. Do you know what I mean? Like, you constantly have to be on. And I think that dialogue is changing a bit now, with things being a little more open in our industry. People talking about things more in regards to anxiety or alcohol abuse, drug abuse, all those things, and we can get into that. But I feel like still there is this pressure that we're under, whether it's owners of businesses or servers or bartenders or dishwashers. Like, when you come into work, everything else stops. Yeah. You have to do this, you have to do that. Yeah. How does that show up for you or for your team?
I'm not sure if you're familiar with a restaurateur in New York named Danny Meyer.
Love Danny Meyer. Yeah.
Yeah. He said something one time that really resonated with me, and we prioritize the people that we interact with on a daily basis in a certain order, in a hierarchy, and our staff comes first, ahead of our guests. And I believe that the days of the guest is always right are dead. Mm-hmm. And I'm a very strong advocate for that, because I don't know what it is, but there is such a lack of human compassion in this industry and this isn't with everyone. Please don't get me wrong, but between guest and service professional, it's disgusting some days, and it really breaks my heart to see the way that these people treat some of our staff. And we've had to ask people to leave and not come back.
Wow. Because
I will not deal with that, and I will not put up with that, because I've been in that position. Yeah. And I think that that's why I can relate. And it's amazing. I'm not going to go into names or details, but some of the people that we've had to ask to leave, it's only been a couple, but there's some of the, they're larger influencers or restaurant owners or things like that. And it's like, no, you cannot treat people this way. And it's kind of become this thing where we put our staff ahead of our guests. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's very important. And we do everything in our absolute power and energy to make sure that our guest experience is flawless. But there are times where that's just not possible. Yeah,
and I think to the point, again, my father and I were impressed by the sign that you had on the door, and this will go up in a few weeks. So in Halifax right now, there's a bit of a heat wave, for lack of a better term. And Jenner and his wife and the leadership team here decided last night it was too hot. It just wasn't functional for them to run service. Functional or safe, and safety being paramount of your staff.
Big time.
That to me is a big culture piece, and that's a term that comes up so much, especially when you talk about someone like Danny Meyer, looking at what he's done with his hospitality group and what he's done with Shake Shack, even the kind of reforming that model of what fast food looks like from his staff point of view, also from the consumer point of view. So culture comes up for me a lot, both with what motivates me in this space, but also on this podcast. So if you can articulate what your culture is here, are you able to describe it, or is it this like free flowing, it's always moving thing, or do you have in your mind's eye what you want the culture to be?
I think respect is something that we tried to sort of enforce and resonate with our staff a lot. When we started this whole thing, I've experienced so much animosity between front and back of house in almost all restaurants that I've worked in, and Annie being back of house and myself being front of house. We wanted to just chop that down immediately. That does not fly here. So the relationship that we have here with our staff and the culture that we've sort of bred is that there's this unspoken mutual respect. And we all respect each other, and we all respect what we do. And, we don't refer to a dishwasher as a dishwasher. We refer to it as a dish warrior.
Awesome. Because which is appropriate.
They're the conduit for the kitchen. Yeah. They run that place, whether they realize it or not. They're the most important piece of that kitchen is the dish warrior. And same with, it's just this thing that we have here where it's like everybody lifts everybody up, and we always try to say things before service to like keep each other motivated, like good fortune. That was something that I'm getting all emotional here.
Yeah, that's good, man.
The first dish warrior that we had, his name was Lance, and he said this thing before service one night, and it really stuck with me. And he just said, good fortune. It's like, well, okay, if I'm putting that positive energy out and my teammates are supporting me, then I'm invincible. Yeah. I got that armor on, So we try to challenge our staff and allow them to be creative and allow them to pursue the things that they're interested in. I'm not naive to think that this is the be all and end all for the staff that works here. It becomes a stepping stone in the path of their career. So anything that I can do to nurture or inspire these people to push harder and push further and learn more, I think that that's important, because you work in a lot of restaurants or places where it's like, as soon as you have an inkling of you leaving, it's shut off.
You're an enemy.
Oh my gosh. So we don't do that here. We celebrate people when they leave. We'll buy them a cake, have a party, whatever it is. We celebrate them because, the sweat and literal blood that they put into this place is, you got to be thankful for that. And you have to support that. You have to kind of like culture, nurture, because it's a very mentally taxing industry. A lot of people walk the line right on that razor because, one bad night or one bad experience, and that it can, we'll dive into it later, but substance abuse is a real thing. And so you need to take care of people. You need to check in with them. And, we don't do staff meal, but I juice 8 liters of like green juice every single week. And we do a pre-service, and it's like, all right, here's your green juice. Let's talk about service, get everybody fired up, and then we kind of like dive into it together.
Has this been something? It's just really intriguing to me. Hear you articulate how you see your business and how you interact with it as a living, breathing thing. And we mentioned Danny Meyer. Are there other people that you have taken and borrowed ideas like the green juice from, or is this just naturally occurred for you? Is this something just like it just happened, or are you looking for mentors and inspiring people in this space that are challenging how it's been done for 50, 60, 70 years, the traditional?
I think it's kind of, I try to take pieces from people that I respect, and spending time around some of the people or the guys that run Raymond's, that was very inspiring for me. We got to know Ross Larkin and Celeste Ma very well a few weeks ago, or I guess months now, in April at Canada's 100 Best. So that was really interesting, and just hearing some of the ways that they approach service, and small things right down to making their own candles, which Ross and I joke about all the time, because I started making candles for here just to kind of reduce the carbon footprint. And he's a very inspiring guy, and we just talked about staff meal, and it's funny because Annie's got the perspective from the kitchen, and she's always like, nobody likes making staff meal. I hope you know that. So that kind of resonated with me, but it's, how can we kind of have this moment where we all sort of zen together, enjoy this like nutritious thing that, most of the people who work in restaurants are malnourished because their schedule's off and their internal clock is a mess. Yeah. So they're up till 2 a.m. They don't wake up till 10 or 11, and then your whole day is kind of skewed the wrong way, right? So it was kind of this idea that I had that, here, like, let's get these vitamins in you and keep you healthy, because your shifts are long. You're on your feet for 10 hours, and it's hard. So, I like I said, I try to take pieces from people that really inspire me, but I don't really know if there's a set recipe to someone you follow, because I think that a restaurant is a dynamic being. It really is. No two restaurants are the same, even if they're in the same neighborhood. They attract different clientele. They run differently. The temperature, the floor, like every single tiny little aspect is different all unique. The time. Yeah. So you kind of have to, yes, there's a recipe for having a successful business and being able to keep the doors open, but at the same time, it has to kind of skew, and you have to be able to adapt to what's coming through the door. Right. I think, and you have to listen to your guests, but also your staff.
Let's talk about the guest experience for a bit. So we are sitting in your business, Bar Kismet, here in Halifax. Beautiful space. This is my first time in. My father's been in a bunch. He's been a customer of yours. I'm hoping to come in soon. We're actually we're moving back to Halifax from Vancouver in a year. Nice. So I'll definitely come in and check it out. But for people that are listening from all over the world right now, if you can explain to them what is the experience as a customer when you walk into Bar Kismet, what are they experiencing? What are they smelling? What are they feeling? What is the vibe when they walk in this space?
Plants.
Yeah, lots of plants.
I got a little carried away.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. The plants in here have become a hobby of mine, so I take care of them every single week, sometimes twice a week, and I think there's upwards of 80 individual plants in this little tiny 520 square foot space. And I think the idea originally, and Annie kind of had to keep not reinforcing it, but keep reminding me, was that we wanted to design the space so that it could be here in 10 years. Right. Not trying to follow a trend. Yeah. I don't want to go industrial. Yeah. It's more like, is this a place that could be open in 10 years? It's not going to follow any trends. So we had to strip the floor back. These are original floorboards. The building, this side of the building was built in 1885, and this addition was put on in 1905 or 1907. Don't quote me on that. Yeah. So we stripped. There was linoleum flooring with plywood over this. Nasty. Yeah. So we stripped that off. We stripped the walls. We took out a drop ceiling, so we gained 3 feet. It was kind of like, let's bring the space back to what it might have looked like. Create a comfortable environment that's very spacious and light, and then timeless.
And what was this before you guys took it over?
It was a Greek diner for a little while. Before that, smoked meats shop. Before that, it was a pottery antique place. Before that, it was, I think, a hairdresser and a butcher shop. And it was a electrical company owned these two buildings. So
Okay.
it was really funny, like piecing the restaurant together. These benches are 125 years old. They were church pews
They're beautiful.
that we stripped down. We got them in this amazing barn way, way outside of the city. We had some friends make the concrete tabletops, which we sourced the bases. These chairs are from New Brunswick. We kind of like pieced the whole thing together. All these lampshades were bought individually, if you can believe that.
Really?
They're all different, but they all come from the same era. So I had to we found 2 or 3 of them, and then we just started piecing them together from thrift shops, antique stores.
Damn.
Like,
good for you, man.
yeah. So and same with the lights over the bar came from an old brewery from a friend of mine that I grew up surfing with, and it's like every single piece. We're like pokers by nature. And
Yeah.
my wife and I, it's like a hobby of ours that we can kind of turn our brain off and we go thrifting, and just that's like our zen.
Wow.
Moment in the city. So it was fun to kind of piece things together and create this like comfortable, timeless environment. I think that was the big thing.
Is the design piece something that really kind of turns you on?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and I think like efficiency is a big thing for me. I went to university for 4 years and took kinesiology, and ergonomics is like a thing that really resonated with me. So I enjoy designing workflow spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun. It was fun having this canvas that was sort of restrained in a way, and I think that was kind of more part of the challenge. It makes it more interesting.
Did that really show its face in the back of house? Obviously, this was an existing restaurant before,
Yeah.
so there were some bones back there. Did that really dictate? No, not
It was a
bones.
mess.
Yeah. Did that really dictate what Annie wanted to do with the menu, or before you guys walked in here, did you know conceptually what you guys were trying to do, and then you walk back there, you go, okay, we can't do that?
Kind of a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oddly enough, when we first started drawing up our business plan, I didn't want to make cocktails anymore. I was so tired of it.
Oh, really?
And mostly, to be honest, the treatment that you receive across the bar.
Mm.
It's just like, you know what, I'm done with this. This industry is poison sometimes, and I mean, I love it, and I'll probably be in it for the rest of my life, or most of it. But I was just so exhausted, working 16-hour shifts or 15-hour shifts behind the bar, and just being treated like a mule.
Yeah.
So it kind of got to a point where it was like, you know what, I'm going to learn to cook, and we'll just do raw fish, and we'll just like make it into a diner. And then, people are like, you can't make money. There's no money in food. There's no money in food.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The margins are garbage, and, that's not going to work. So it kind of like evolved slowly, and then became this idea where we would make sure that every front was balanced.
Okay.
So every front is strong. So the cocktail menu is reserved. There's only 10 to 12 drinks, but they're very focused on the quality of our ingredients, and we flip a drink once a week, essentially. And then it was kind of the same thing with the beer. Our beer list is pretty great, and same with the wine, and then the food. And it was kind of like the space dictated a little bit what we could do, and the size of the menu, and the rate at which dishes go out, and sort of the way the menu's built in order to kind of create that flow as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to have things that are too intricate or too complicated to kind of slow down your pace of service, essentially. So it was weird.
How do you stay creative then, if you still kind of have, and I'm not put words in your mouth, but the kind of that bitter taste when it comes to being behind the bar, and that experience for so many years was your reality, but when you have to now, from a business standpoint, there's more margins there.
Yeah.
So how do you do that without having distaste for the creative process and serving alcohol?
I think I kind of had to get over it. When we picked up and moved from Toronto, we drove out to my wife's cottage, which is in Montebello, which is about an hour and a half from Ottawa, and we spent 3 weeks there. No internet service, no cell service.
Ooh, sexy.
We like packed up the fridge, and I had to almost, I know it sounds corny, but like re-find myself.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you know what? You need to kind of shed that experience and move forward, because I really enjoy it. I don't know why, but I can come up with drinks. Like I'll wake up, I know it sounds cliche, I'll wake up in the middle of the night with drink ideas, and it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my gosh, let's try these flavors. Let's try this flavor combo. Let's use duck fat. Let's use corn husks. Like all these weird things just kind of like flow into my brain. And it got to a point where it's like, let's take advantage of this. Let's roll with this. So that was kind of a part of it. And then the bar team that I work with, Will Irvin, who's just turned 25, and Cooper Tardival, who's a little on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
a little older than I am. Cooper coming from Vancouver, Will coming from Halifax, and then myself. So there's about 10 years that separate the three of us. And that energy dynamic kind of inspired me again. I was like, because Will's got this fire. He wants to just kick the door down,
right? Yeah.
So that kind of helped me get the ball rolling again. And there are a lot of aspects of bartending I really do love. And I really love making something for people that they've never had before, or introducing somebody to a spirit that they've never explored before. That's very gratifying for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that high that you get from that, you can't quantify.
It's the golf shot, man.
That's the golf shot.
Right?
So that moment right there, or executing some sort of flawless service for somebody that's sitting at the bar as a solo diner,
Mm-hmm.
like that stuff is just like, because they'll walk away, it becomes an experience. They don't remember the cocktail, but they remember the experience.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that really motivated me to be like, you know what, you got to put your head down.
Mm-hmm.
One bad experience, or 400 shouldn't ruin something for you. So it's tough though. Mentally, you have to be very strong to work in this industry, I find, and I think a lot of people struggle with that aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. It can be so challenging, and like I said it again, it's very thankless. But it's almost like you have this seed and you plant it in the dirt and you just water it. Nothing happens, but you got to water it again.
Yeah.
And there's so many people, and I don't blame them at all, that they'll water that seed for years and nothing will show and they'll leave. And I understand, I get it, but it's people like you and Annie and others in this industry that are really digging in and hanging on, that are defining what our culinary reality is from coast to coast in this country. And it takes people like you to sacrifice, because that's what you are doing. If you're not aware of it, you are sacrificing so much of what you have for this industry and for your staff and for your consumers. Let's dive quickly, if you're open to it, to this abuse, substance abuse, or drug abuse, alcohol abuse, anxiety, all of the things that are coming up now in our space.
Big topic.
Yeah, very big topic. Let's just open it up for a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah.
How has it shown up for you in your past in this space? Is it showing up currently we don't have to name names, obviously, but is it showing up currently in these four walls? Is it showing up locally in the Halifax industry? Like, what is your experience with something like this, whether it be personal or with someone else?
I mean, I think I've been pretty fortunate to surround myself with positive people and try to not dive down that hole. I don't have serious heart problems, but not great heart problems, and that's kind of kept me away from a lot of that riffraff. I grew up surfing. I've been surfing for 18 years, and that was also a big thing for me. Is if you're partying all night, you can't get up and surf in the morning.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I think the whole reason I started in this industry is because I wanted to surf more.
Oh, really?
You work nights and surf days.
The timing just worked out.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother story. But, personally, I haven't gone too far down the rabbit hole. But you definitely, I think the thing that is the fuel for the fire for substance abuse is the level at which you operate.
Mm-hmm.
On a nightly basis, you are just running on adrenaline. Because you work a 10-hour, you work a 14-hour shift, you don't sit down, you probably pee once.
Mm-hmm.
You don't eat for the most part. You shove a granola bar in your mouth when you're running downstairs to change a keg. Like, you're running on such a high level of adrenaline that it's hard to come down from. Mm-hmm. So you walk out of the building with cash in your hand, you can't sleep. So what do? You medicate.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, you go and smoke something or drink something, and I think that helps people turn their brain off in a lot of ways. But then again, your internal clock is shifting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're finishing your workday at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and you have this buzz, natural buzz, that you cannot shake. So it's almost this way of coping with that I think becomes habitual, and also turns into this very slippery slope. Well, I'm not falling asleep till 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. How do I put myself to sleep? So then it kind of flips the other way. Mm-hmm. So, and it's different for every part of this industry, whether you're a nightclub, like full service fine dining, or kind of casual dining like us. It depends. Mm-hmm. Because the time that you finish during the night, the manner in which you receive your gratuities or your tips is all different. And also the people that frequent your establishment, we have a very hard no drinking rule while you're working.
Right.
But you'd be surprised at the establishments that are notable, the people that drink on the job. You would be very surprised. So that was like a big thing for us. I don't put up with hangovers. I do not tolerate that in here, and that's like we've had to ask people to leave because of the way they show up to work. And I treat it like a competition, or like I understood when I got into this that there wouldn't be any room for me to be hungover ever.
Right.
Because you have to be, you have to be 100% every day. Yeah. You have to, or it's like that one bad guest experience or that one mistake you make that can cost you thousands
or the whole business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for that's not an option for us. It's like not even a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we're lucky with the people that we have working here, and we've had some minor situations, but in all, we're very fortunate.
How is and again, I haven't been home now really since 2004, so I know very little about the local scene right now, and I'm really excited about this trip because I'm learning more about what's going on and who's doing what, and it's an absolute pleasure to sit down and kind of pick your brain. Mm-hmm. But with your knowledge of this space locally, is it showing up a lot in other restaurants? And again, we don't need to name names, but is it something that you're talking with your peers about on the regular, or are people of your mindset where they are, as far as a leadership role, saying, you know what, this is unacceptable, these are the rules that we're going to stick to, and that's really mitigating a lot of the damage that has been done already? Or is it still really prevalent in the space here in the scene?
And I think it's a weird and difficult situation to talk about the industry that has given me so much in this sort of negative light, and I don't want to paint a broad stroke.
For sure.
But anywhere with a restaurant scene or an industry, there will be substance abuse and the dark side of it, and it's dealing with the stress and it's dealing with the anxiety, and people will lean on it. It's very prevalent in Halifax.
Are there platforms then, I guess, to kind of turn the conversation? Is there platforms for people like you, owners, operators, managers, that you guys come together and discuss maybe ways to mitigate or ways to help those that may need help?
And I think this is where one of the strangest sort of issues or conflicts arises in hospitality, is that you are getting together with your competitors in a weird way, and not everybody is accepting or welcoming to that idea. There are people in this city that don't want to be in the same room as each other.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's that's something that comes up so often on this show, and I'm challenged by that right now in the city that I call home in Vancouver, and I always use the word silos. Yeah. And I should sit down with a lot of chefs on this show, and I find, and Annie probably knows this better because obviously that's her world, but I find they are so guarded and living in these silos of even something as simple as, I just found great local strawberries on a deal, and I'm not going to tell anyone else. No. Whereas I look at it from where I stand of the industry's only going to benefit, and my business will do better, and your business. What does Danny Meyer say? He says, a rising tide raises all ships. Yeah. And I think that's the mindset that we need to have. Yeah. But the reality, like you said, the reality is there's still some people that can't even be in the same room because they don't want to share or they have issues with. Yeah. And that to me... Vancouver's not a big city, don't get me wrong, but it is bigger than Halifax.
Absolutely.
So I have this idea that everything in Halifax right now is a lot better than, you know what I mean? Because it seemingly has the
small town charm.
The small town charm, and everyone's like, you know what? You're my neighbor. Like, let's work together to solve these issues. Let's come together to whatever it may be. But
everyone's still grinding it out.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone wants bums and seats, right?
And having that, even if it's minor competitive edge, it can mean the success or failure of a restaurant. The percentages are astonishing of how quickly restaurants fail. In 2 years is 80%. 80. Yeah. 80%. That's 80 out of 100. Only 20 of them are going to stay open. Like, come on. Why do we even do this? And that's what it comes back to. Yeah. But I'm an open book, and I think Annie, for the most part, I mean, she has worked so hard to establish some of the relationships with our suppliers. She's very tight-lipped about it, and I don't blame her. Because, I mean, this we could probably do an entire episode separately on the seafood industry in Halifax and Nova Scotia.
That's a whole other
It's a dark, scary thing that I'm not going to...
Really?
Yes. It's like 90 to 95% of the seafood that lands here is exported or already spoken for. Yeah. It is impossible to source... Like the majority of the species that exist in the North Atlantic and Nova Scotia is mind-blowing. It is like
same thing I learned happens in Vancouver as well. The halibut gets shipped, it gets frozen, it gets frozen at sea, shipped to China, processed, packed, and then sent back to us in Vancouver.
Same thing here. I won't name the brands, but a lot of the frozen haddock that comes back here is processed in China.
It just doesn't make economically for me. It doesn't make sense.
I know,
but
and so I have to drive somewhere to pick up some of our seafood, and I ran into a gentleman who was offloading tuna, and they had already sold the tuna before it got off the boat to China or to the east to Southeast Asia.
Right.
So there are people prodding and testing fat content, and they're on the phone selling it before it even lands. Isn't it like? Lands, goes in a truck straight to this place, gets on a plane, gone. It's amazing.
So then how do restaurants like Bar Kismet and your neighbor down the street, how do we do it?
We have to fight, but why hold 100 pounds of a whitefish when you can sell 65,000? Why?
Yeah.
And it's because this export industry has gotten so big and it's worth so much money that they don't even bat an eye. I had a gentleman sit at my bar one night here who was an ex or still is part of the National Fisheries Advisory, and he told me some crazy stories.
Oh, I bet. Like mafia-like stuff going on.
There is some weird crime ties to some of the fishing that goes on in this province, but again, I think that's a whole nother conversation. But there is some sort of incubation stations for some of the crustaceans or shellfish that is most popular in this province that people don't want you to know about. Right. And though, I did the math, and it's millions and millions of tons a year that they sell.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It's amazing. It really is amazing once you kind of scratch the surface a little bit, because it's this like very friendly, approachable industry. But at the same time, you are fighting tooth and nail to get some of this stuff.
You know what's interesting that this comes up is because this obviously wasn't on my radar at all. But the intriguing thing for me in this space is so many of the changes that I want to see, and I feel like people like you, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, that we want to see this industry move forward. Yeah. It all starts with an education. It starts with conversations like this, and albeit this is just one podcast, and we're speaking to roughly 10,000 people worldwide, but that's still a conversation that's being had. Yeah. And now maybe people will dig a little bit deeper and educate themselves a little bit more. Do you think what you know now and what Annie has come to learn in her years in the back of house, do a small percentage of your guests even understand what it takes to put a protein on a plate, whether it is from the ocean or from the land? Do you think there's a general, or is there still this ignorance of it just shows up?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound cynical. I really don't, because I'm
positive by nature.
I am.
Yeah.
And I'm a positive individual, and I try to find the best things in life and milk it till it's gone. But I think that, I don't know how to put this without offending people. I think that the availability of information or misinformation skews people's reality or their idea of reality. Chef's Table is an amazing series. Mm-hmm. It really is. But I think the word foodie gets thrown around way too much. I absolutely despise that word. And I think that because the internet has information, right or wrong, and people can look at it on the mobile phone that's in their pocket all day, that they come in with a higher sense of, I don't know if it's, I don't know what the word is. It's not pretentiousness. It's almost like, I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And I don't care what you have to say. Right. And that really breaks my heart, because, it's not an appreciation for the small, tiny steps it makes to make preserved lemon. Yeah. Like just small stuff like that, or sourcing olives from all over the country and then having somebody tell you that from their perspective that they're over marinated. I don't know. There's just this sort of permission that has been granted to people because of the internet and reviewing sites and accessibility and social media, that they can kind of like put their sense out there. I would never dare. No. I would never go into a lawyer's office and then leave and write a bad Google review. Yeah. About how many times they use the word
Yeah, exactly.
Or like what their rate was. Yeah. I would never do that. I would never go to a hardware store and then leave and Google review it. Like, get a friggin' hobby, man.
Yeah. Well, I think it's both the beautiful thing and the challenging thing about our space, is because everyone touches food. Not everyone. Yeah. The world isn't that sorted out yet, but a lot of people can access food. And because they can go to restaurants and because they can cook at home and they can watch shows like Chef's Table, they feel like they know. But even something like out west we deal with spot prawns once a year where they're
3
kind
weeks.
of
get
they're in
'em.
season.
Yeah.
You get them?
We get them.
Okay, amazing. I don't know if do you guys put them on the menu?
Yeah, just for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
because I know a few chefs, and I won't name any names, that won't put them on the menu because for them to make money on spot prawns,
You don't make any.
they've got to charge you $70 a plate, and no one's going to pay that. Do you know what I mean? But the consumer doesn't understand that,
No.
so they don't understand when you're selling it here at Bar Kismet for, I'm going to guess, 25, 28, $30.
Yeah.
You're making nothing.
Yeah.
It's probably costing you money.
Yeah.
But
And-
that conversation isn't being that conversation isn't being covered on
No,
Chef's Table.
God, no. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because humans as a species must consume carbohydrates and protein in order to exist.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a relatable topic for them.
100%.
I am a firm believer that every single person's palate is different, and that's been proven scientifically over and over and over and over. So for you and I to have a conversation about sodium levels, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So for them to say something like, and I feel like that should be things that people should be warning service staff about, because something can be properly seasoned, but it might be over seasoned for you.
Right.
But, there's somebody, I can't remember who it was, a comedian that said, you eat food, you're a foodie. Well, I breathe air, so I'm a breathy. Like,
Yeah.
It comes down to this weird relationship that I think, and I've been thinking about the last few days since I've been kind of corresponding with you about, how do you attack that thing? Well, and I think it's because it's a common topic for people that for human beings that they need to do in order to exist. So they feel like they have the right to comment on it.
Exactly.
And, we had this is a funny, very specific, example that we had cultured butter on our menu, and I don't know if people are aware of the cost of dairy, or the process, or the time that it involves
takes,
to make cultured butter. It's like a 2 or 3 day process, and we had somebody comment on the price of the cultured butter, and I just looked them in the face, and I apologized. And that's that thing where you're just like, I'm bending over the table right now for you.
Yeah.
Because we were losing money on it.
Yeah.
We're straight up.
And you're just trying
to make butter.
And well, also this is the challenging piece is I want for people like you to make cultured butter, and I want for chefs out in Vancouver like Robert Belcham to do things that aren't just burgers and pasta. No offense to burgers and pasta. No. But this is a chef in my eyes that has skills that he could hang with some of the best in North America as far as I'm concerned. But he's like governing his skills and his talents because people aren't willing to pay for it, or they aren't willing to be open to, oh wow, like I've never actually understood what cultured butter was or is.
You can only push your industry as far as people are willing to receive it. And this is no slight against Nova Scotia, because people have been incredibly receptive to this style of dining. This is not a common style of dining here.
Right.
So they have been very accommodating, and people have been incredibly supportive, but you can only go so far. We still have people walking in the door looking at the menu and leaving because there's no lobster roll, fish and chips, swordfish, fried oysters. Like those types of things are still turning people away, and that's fine. Because people have cravings, people want certain things, they're comfortable with certain things, and they don't want to eat outside of that limit. But to have somebody go out of their way to send me a postcard to complain about the price on our cultured butter and not have a return address or a name, is kind of like, what's your deal, man? Or lady?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Or how much time do you have on your hands?
Yeah, get a hobby. Stop shitting on, pardon my language, on people that are like running small businesses as a husband and wife team that are just trying to
add to the community, make a living,
push the culinary scene in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, there are people here in Restaurateur that have been fighting to get any sort of national recognition or notoriety. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the spotlight goes to Montreal and then takes a giant jump to Newfoundland. There's a few in Quebec City, and en route a few years ago, Quebec City Restaurant won, and I was so happy. Mm-hmm. I was so happy because it wasn't Montreal, it wasn't Toronto, and no offense, it wasn't Vancouver. Yeah. But those are the three main, and because of population density and because of the accessibility to ingredients, but those are the three major hubs for culinary and drinking experiences. Yeah. But I think that those days are kind of slowly shifting where people are recognizing that there is things going on in New Brunswick. Michael Smith is opening another restaurant in PEI. Yeah. Newfoundland is booming right now, and there's a few restaurants that are doing amazing things. Yeah. And now Nova Scotia, like we're so spoiled for craft beer here. We've got a few distilleries coming online. There are a few really great restaurants here.
Yeah, it's just about putting them on the radar and getting them recognized. But in that, I'm also I temper that a bit as well because I'm challenged with things like in Vancouver we do like the Georgia Strait best of, and it's just, if you get down and talk with a bunch of people in the industry and the chefs are like, dude, come on, like, do you know what I mean? And it's
lists.
just lists, and the issue that I'm challenging the Vancouver industry with now, and I would love to challenge the Canadian industry, is can we not all get together and talk about what are we trying to do? What is our North Star as a country culinarily wise? What are we trying to do together? Where are we going with this? Because you see countries and cities like, say for example, Copenhagen, what they've done with their food scene in the last 8 to 10 years is amazing. You have people flying to Copenhagen
from all over the world,
just to eat, like nothing else. They're not going to see the terroir. They're just going to eat, and then they're flying out. Like, how can we create that in places like Halifax, in places like New Brunswick? It doesn't happen in Vancouver even. Do you know what I mean? So what are we not doing right now as a collective from coast to coast to coast to make us all push in one direction?
I think making a career out of cooking or making drinks, or even working as a server, is harder in Canada and in the United States than it is in European countries.
Why do you say that?
There's no wage regulation. A lot of establishments don't offer any sort of health insurance, long-term like benefit plans, nothing. So why would I work in a restaurant in Ontario and make $7 an hour? You know, so, but when you look at European countries, I'm a waiter by profession. I'm a career server. It's not, and this word comes up so much, and I hate, that's a strong word. I dislike a lot, and I try to enforce my staff to be proud of what they do and remove the word just.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just a bartender. No, you're not. You're a bartender, and that's a trade. That is a respectable trade. I'm a server. That is a respectable trade. And it's kind of like people, and this is like a very psychologically kind of driven topic to dive into, but it's what's your real job?
What do you really do?
What are you doing after this? And you know, I never announce myself. I never correct people, and people often talk to me like I'm just a busser. And I love it. I love it because I get the gritty that they wouldn't say to an owner, you know. So my role here is professional bar back and busser. I run the door, I run the room, I polish in the back. I'll do anything. I'm learning how to call line because one of our cooks is out of town. I'll jump in the dish pit. Like, nice. Wherever you need me, I'm going, and I don't care because all I want is this place to run. And so to hear the way people speak to my staff or speak to staff in the service industry in general, it's you're just a bartender, you're just a server, and that just drives me crazy because in places like Europe, it's a profession, and it's not here. You know, in Texas, their minimum wage for service industry is less than $2.
Are you serious?
$2.
Jeez.
$2 an hour.
How?
Exactly, because there's no regulation, and they're fighting right now in some of those states to kind of regulate that. But they're making, I can't remember what it was. It's $1.60 or something crazy. I
wonder what the owners feel. How the owners feel about that.
Oh my God! Can you imagine their profit margins?
They're not
labor.
They're not 3 and 5 and 8%. They're probably like 25 and 30%.
But and the cost of alcohol down there is crazy. So that is another whole other conversation. But that was one thing that when we started, we had to enforce was health insurance. So we pay into health insurance every month. We split it with our staff. I don't remember, it's 60-40 or 55-45 that we pay the majority, and they have full medical, dental.
I feel like a lot of the progressive restaurants now nationwide are doing that. They're turning on to, like, if we want people to feel like this is not just a serving job, then we need to act and provide them that reality. And sure, it costs you guys a little bit more at the bottom line, but when you do those things, I think it adds to the culture, obviously, and it's going to add to the longevity of your business, and people are going to be more likely and willing to stay. And I don't know what the reality is here right now, but I know labor is a massive issue in Vancouver and in other cities across Canada, where it's literally always a help wanted sign in the window. Always. Is that the reality here as well, or?
Locally, the industry, I think hospitality industry is very transient in a lot of ways, but if you can kind of lock down and treat people with respect, I think they'll stay. You have to nurture them, and you have to respect them, and you have to listen. You can't just tell them what they need to be doing. You have to listen to them and kind of be accommodating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I heard somebody, I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, Gary V.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah,
Very interesting dude.
yeah.
And so one of my friends turned me on to him, and you know, I'm not like following every single word he says, but he does have some very interesting things that he brings up and some very interesting pointers. And he said, you know, part of being a manager is that you're working for them; they're not working for you.
Oh, totally. And that is such a paradigm shift, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Instead of, this is what I need. This is what I need.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So it's this balance, right? And you have to take it with a grain of salt because every situation is different. But I think that was like a real kind of light bulb for me. It was like, yeah, this is how I operate already. So this is cool. But
yeah. a lot of the progressive restaurateurs that I know, they have this mindset of, and they don't actually articulate it this way, but they have this mindset of everything's my fault.
Yeah.
So if they take that on, then they're in control, really. Yeah. But if a staff leaves and they're not happy, or if a staff does show up hungover, what did I do wrong? I wasn't obviously clear enough in my expectations of you when you got the job that these are the standards. So taking on, like, you know what? Service failed tonight because I didn't give you guys the tools that you needed to succeed, and that's on me, the leader of this business. And I think that mindset is, instead of going, Jack, Joe, Jill, you messed up, you're fired.
Yep.
I think it's just a much more, again, progressive, healthier, longevity-driven mindset of leaders to have of this. This is on me. Yeah. And if I don't give you the tools to succeed, that's my fault.
And it's funny because it almost comes full circle and goes back to the mental health thing. And I think that will sort of be the beacon by which we judge the successfulness or the longevity of this industry. We, as a team, my wife and I, do not schedule our staff more than 4 days a week.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Unless they ask for it.
Okay.
Because there are people that do want to work 5 days.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a very talented pastry chef or cook who he's in here 6 days a week a lot of times just because he wants to be.
Can we give him a shout out?
Oh, big time. Andre's the man.
Shout out to Andre.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Awesome.
He's very, very talented. He just won the national skills contest for pastry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's
legit.
Very hard worker. And he just loves being here. And he loves learning and he loves getting his hands dirty. And, you know, he wants to be here 6 days a week. But we try to limit the rest of our staff to 4 days.
That's both front of house and back of house? Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because 4 days is 40 hours. Mm-hmm. So why? Well, why?
Why push it?
Yeah. And it's 10 hours on your feet straight. So it's kind of like, that's enough. Mm-hmm. If you want to be here more, you want to make more money, then this is kind of on you. If you want to try 5 days, we can do it. But I'm not going to ask you to sign up for 5 days a week because that's too much.
And do you find yourself with people like Andre? Are you or Annie taking, a little more time on Wednesdays or Fridays or whatever day it might be to like check in with him, be like, hey man, just checking out, like, are you good?
Yep.
Everything all right?
Yeah. We try to have like a very open dialogue with a lot of our staff to make sure people are kind of okay. That's a 2-letter word. But it's got a lot of weight.
Big time.
Yeah. And kind of circling back to what we were talking about before about mental health and sort of, Canada as a whole or even North America as an industry. I think that the mental health topic or mental safety, I think it needs to be more in the limelight, and I think it needs to have more of a spotlight. But I think that it hasn't come up yet where there is an arena where people feel safe, because as soon as you admit that something's wrong, it's looked at as a sign of weakness, and that's an old way of thinking in this industry. Yeah, I work 6 days this week, 14 hours a day. Haven't slept at all. Like,
I'm good.
Those are bragging rights.
Yeah,
for a lot of people. But
100%.
But we shouldn't look at it that way. So, in order, I think, to maintain the pushing forward of this industry and evolving, more people need to stay in Canada. You look at Dan Burns.
No,
Dan Burns opened Torst.
Okay,
which is a Michelin star restaurant in Brooklyn. He's from Dartmouth.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you never hear about these people, but they are here, but they leave because it's availability of ingredients, and this industry and the culture is not quite evolved enough. Canada as a country is not old enough. Yeah,
dude, it comes up all the time. We are still so young, and
that it's kind of what it comes down to. And you look at these places in Europe, and they've been there for thousands of years. So it's this kind of unspoken thing that we work in restaurants. This restaurant's been open for 127 years, and it's like this building hasn't even been here for 127 years. So. Yeah. Until there is sort of a platform on which people can express discomfort or anxiety or mental health issues and feel comfortable doing it without being embarrassed or pointed out or ridiculed on social media. I think we will run into these roadblocks over and over and over, and you will see more people die. You will see more people overdose. You'll see more people go through these things, and it's a very real, scary thing in this industry. And I don't know why it exists in services more than most.
Yeah,
it's more than most. You know, the only other industry I think that you could go close to would be oil.
Yeah,
with some of those
just the demanding hours,
poor people that work up north with nothing and come back with all this cash in their pocket. It's the same kind of scenario where you have all this cash in your hand, you're riding this adrenaline rush, you know, and it's really scary. It's very scary. And I don't think that the people that walk into a restaurant and sit their butt in a seat understand that.
Yeah, again, I think there needs to be, and I would love to somehow, even working with you and your peers and the guys and girls out in Vancouver, just create a platform for more conversation. Be like, hey guys, what are we doing here about this? What can we be doing? Yeah. How can we be better? What works in your city? What doesn't work? The thing that you mentioned about us being so young, as much as it is a challenge, with challenges, I see opportunities as well. And because we are so young, we're still finding ourselves, whether you look at our food and what defines us, but also our ability to nurture our work environments and our staff. We have the ability to turn our ship pretty quickly, whereas others, it's a big ship and it's going one way. Yeah. So we're still kind of finding our feet. And I think that can be a positive. And it's people like you, conversations like this that are a little more progressive, and they're calling it out and being like, look, if you have an issue, like, we want to know and we want to help, and we may not have the answer, but we'll do our best to find it.
And this is... what I'm going to say is going to be heavy, and, you know, that's just the way life is. How many more Anthony Bourdains are going to go until we realize that the foundation of which we build our industry upon is flawed? And it breaks my heart to see somebody, an icon, an absolute
a legend,
beacon in this industry, and a motivating force for a lot of people, go so soon and early, and then have people jump on it as a social media opportunity to make a post. What are you doing? Yeah. There are a lot of people that were close to him and looked up to him, and I understand that that's where you share. But in the same breath, it's like, why don't you reflect internally and find a way how to mitigate these types of things and get control of it before it happens again? Yeah,
be the change.
Because I guarantee you, mark my words, that will not be the last pillar of size to go in our lifetime. Yeah. You know, so and that to me, you know, life is a very fleeting thing, and as soon as we're born, we're dying, and it's heavy to think about, but you got to realize that you might not wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, I heard that the other day from a guy I follow on social media. I'll give him a quick shout out, Dave Nixon, and he said we're all walking around with this number above our heads, this invisible number, and I don't know yours, you don't know yours, you don't know mine, I don't know mine, but we have this ignorance that tomorrow is given. Yeah. And he said, when you die, you have two numbers. You've got the year you were born and the year you died, and that dash in the middle. And that dash in the middle is what you're doing. Yeah. So what are you doing? And I would say right now, if you're listening and you feel like you have some issues that you can't get help with or are wanting help with, reach out, whether it be, if I can say, reach out to Jenna, reach out to me. An email. Yeah, reach out to anyone in this space and just ask for the help, because it's people like Anthony Bourdain, people like Robin Williams, who every photo of the guy, he was smiling, but inside he was literally dying. Yeah. And Anthony Bourdain, you and I would probably argue that, I mean, he had the life, right? Traveling, eating, drinking. He just created this amazing story for himself, but he was battling something much stronger.
And I think it kind of goes back to that glamorization of this industry.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. It's a sexy space.
Why hasn't anybody done a documentary about the other side of it? You can call it chefs under the table. Like it's coming, and I think that is going to shock a lot of people. But you're right. What are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing with your time? And if you are in distress, you need to address it, because one pill the wrong way or one drink the wrong way, and you might not wake up. Yeah. There's been a couple massive deaths, and I think it happens not a lot more, but maybe even more in the alcohol side of things. Sasha Petrasky passed away a few years ago, and he was one of the most iconic bartenders in American history, as far as I'm concerned, for changing the entire way we look at cocktails in the last, few decades. And he passed away. I think he was in his 40s.
Yeah, like what?
He
hadn't even started yet, really.
Oh God, no. But there's been a couple people, Dick Bradshaw, in the last few years that have gone way too early due to substance abuse and anxiety and mental illness. So it's not to paint too much of a dark kind of
no, but it
brush
is
stroke.
It's a reality that we do need to deal with. And I think I'm proud of you for bringing it up and putting a long tail on this kite, because these are conversations that need to be normalized and need to be had in our space. So I applaud you for allowing for us to go a little bit deeper, and for you for sharing kind of how it impacts you.
And me fearing the discomfort that it's going to put you in, or your father in.
Exactly.
But that's almost the root of the problem. Me being anxious about telling you or in front of your father that this is a real problem, that's the problem.
Exactly.
It needs to be comforted, and it needs to be acceptable. And I guarantee you the percentage of people that operate in this industry, it's probably very frightening, the number of people that deal with anxiety and mental illness. And my wife and I are like slowly kind of getting used to that constant anxiety that we deal with operating this place, because it's always on.
Yeah.
And whether it's edibles or melatonin or CBD or whatever it is to help kind of turn your brain off, though that's more acceptable now.
Right.
But before, that could go the wrong way as well. And I think drinking is a kind of a gate or a portal, because it lessens your inhibitions.
Yeah, I'm not a user of any of those things myself, but I would implore anyone listening, if you're a leader of your business, of your restaurant, take Jenner's green juice option as far as what you want to be kind of putting in the bodies, mouths, and minds of your staff, because that for me, again, talking about longevity, that's a much longer game than trying to mute something that needs to be discussed. Something that came up, not industry related at all, but I was watching the NHL awards, and Robin Leonard, I don't know if you know Robin Leonard, he's a goaltender in the NHL, and he actually got up on stage in front of all of his peers and said that he didn't say mentally ill, he had some other terminology for it, so I'll have to put it in the show notes, but he, in front of all these people, these big, tough men, he said, I am mentally ill, but I'm working to get mentally strong. I think that's what he said. Yeah. And that to me was such a beacon, that there's kids watching him that are massive Robin Leonard fans or NHL fans, and they're watching him be vulnerable and think this is, and then we can go down a whole other podcast on this one, like the bravado of being male and not saying, my dad and I were talking the other day, like men we converse differently than women, but why does it have to be the case?
I know.
Why can't you and I go for a walk and that not be effeminate? Why can't you and I have a big talk and still be masculine men? And you tell me, like, Brad, you know what? This industry is killing me and I need help. Like, that is such a vulnerable place to be. That's what we need people to do, is be vulnerable. And you don't get to do that, unfortunately, when that door opens and you're on. Up. Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Because they're more concerned about your cultured butter being too expensive. They don't want to hear about the issues you're dealing with internally.
No, they don't. And it's funny that you framed it that way. We often refer to it. I look at my day in three sections. There's kind of before the show starts. I get as much as I can do before 5 o'clock, and then the curtain goes up, and it's showtime. And that's like pre-show, during the show, and after the show. And it's a dance. It very much is a dance, and it's a performance. And we shout out to a new Apte, who is an owner in Seattle. She owns a bar called Rob Roy. Also No Anchor with her husband Chris Elford. They're absolute gems. And she had this really amazing analogy one time where she said, you have to change your shoes. Even if you don't need to change your shoes, you got to change your shoes when you show up to work. You got to sit down, you got to change your shoes, because it's a mental transition as well.
Right.
Even if they're the same pair of shoes.
Right. It's
but
just a switch.
You need to take that second to in your head, click over. And it's weird in service because you're not allowed to show emotion. You have to shut that stuff out. And I don't know why that's acceptable, but that's the way it runs. It's about the guest experience, and you're almost this floating ninja that's just serving.
Nothing hurts you, nothing harms you.
No, you don't want to interfere with their experience. You just want to compliment it, and you don't want to get in the way, and you don't want to show emotion. You don't want to talk about your aunt that just passed away last week from stomach cancer.
Yeah. But I think to your point, it's then you need to be making sure that the pre-show and post-show, you're really taking care of yourself.
Yep.
And that's going back to what I said when we first hit record is what do you do? Because you're up till midnight and then you're here at what time did we start? At 10 a.m. Yeah, 9:30, 10 a.m. you start here. So you kind of alluded to a bit, but help me and listeners understand what that actually looks like for you. How are you personally recharging when you leave this space? Are you doing things like, obviously meditation's a big thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you're big into being outdoors and in the ocean. Obviously you're not doing that at midnight, but what is your form of recharging right now so that you can come back and approach your pre-show as you want to approach it?
And it's funny, when we started down this path, I had a strong feeling, not a strong feeling, I knew that I wouldn't be able to take any time for myself before we hit 2 years. I knew it.
You accepted that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that set me up mentally. I think that set me up mentally to endure. Because the restaurant industry is so fragile and one move the wrong way can send you to the bottom of the ocean, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that 2 years was kind of the tag I had to put on it to sacrifice my life, my happiness, my health, until I could physically step away enough. And I haven't surfed since my wedding day, and that was last year.
Damn.
Yeah. And when I leave here, I built a chin-up bar in my house a month and a half ago, and that's been really healthy for me, but that's only been about 15 minutes a day.
Right.
And that's, 10 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before I go to bed. And that's kind of helped me a little bit to sleep a little better and have a little more energy, a little more strength. But I knew that wasn't going to be a thing for a while. And I think music has become a big thing for me. Because we listen to so much music here, and Spotify's this amazing tool. It develops these amazing Discover Weekly playlists for myself, and I think I've really tuned into discovering new types of music, and that's been a bit of an outlet for me. But I'm trying to read a little bit and take time for myself, but I haven't quite got there yet. My wife, God, I love her so much, and she works so friggin' hard, man. She gets up and goes to boxing or fitness classes 3 or 4 times a week. Or she'll take an hour during the day, midday, to go box, and I haven't quite gotten there yet. So I grew up out near the ocean in Lordstown Beach, and I stayed there for a very long time because the ocean has given me everything in my life, and I need to get back in the water, but I just haven't kind of kicked that door open yet.
Right.
So it's coming, I hope, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I've only spent a few hours on a surfboard in the ocean out west in Tofino, but I know for me what it does for me, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term biophilia, but biophilia is this idea, and this actually is a segment of science now where they're showing benefits for taking your shoes off and putting it in the dirt, putting your feet in the dirt and getting in the ocean and just feeling, because again, call it whimsical or whatever you want, we are all connected to these things. You are connected to the water is connected to you, these plants are connected to you, vice versa. And I can't encourage you enough to find that time and find that space, because I can see what it means to you to get out and just get in the ocean. Because for me, the few moments I have been out there, it's like when I used to play hockey. When I played hockey, I just played hockey. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah. And nothing else was even in my head or in my heart. It was just that. So I can only assume, and I don't want to put words in your mouth again, but I only assume for you, when you're out in the ocean on your board, there is nothing else. No. And that in itself is such a powerful thing when you're in the space like this, where the demands on you are so high. And I don't want people to listening to this to think that just because Jenner is an owner and a barback and all those things, that this is exclusive to him. You can be a server, you can be a bartender, and the demands on you are ridiculously high as well. So this applies to you as well. Like, go get in the ocean. Just because he's the one that's paying the bills doesn't mean that his issues are any more than yours. No. So everyone in this space needs to listen to what Jenner is sharing and put it into practice. I'm proud of you for putting up the pull-up bar, but I challenge you as someone that wants to see you doing this for a lot longer, is do what Annie does and make it book it like an appointment with your doctor, a non-negotiable. But I understand. I'm a new father. And I understand the sacrifices that I've made, but a lot of times it's a story that we're telling ourselves. And there is time and just ask for it,
Yeah.
right? And ask for help. And I think that's something, again, going back to the whole bravado piece, is as men, a lot of times we're too proud to ask for help.
Big time.
And say like, look, you know what? I need a day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just want a day. I need a day.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. Nobody's problems are bigger or more important than others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether you are a server, a dishwasher, a
Dish warrior. Yeah.
front of house champion is what we like to call our pit boss or our bussers. And, you know, that's, everyone deals with things in different ways. And it's amazing the energy that comes from the ocean and the peacefulness and honestly not thinking about a single thing. You're not attached to your phone. No one can reach you. Yeah. And I think the humbling thing about being in the ocean is realizing that we are mere visitors
just
on this
like a speck
rock floating around this endless galaxy that nobody knows anything about.
Yeah, but we think we do.
We think we know what we're talking about. Yeah. But as soon as I ask you where the galaxy ends or what the bigger picture is, nobody has any answers. Yeah. So it's, you know, that's a real scary hole to go down. But I think the ocean has a large part, and I mean, we're connected to it here in the restaurant, and we try to do our part to donate to Surfrider Foundation and use a lot of bycatch and take advantage of species that are naturally sustainable and all that kind of stuff. And but being in the ocean, I think is it's that force, you know, which keeps me grounded.
Well, I implore you to get out there as soon as you can. Well, I appreciate you taking time this morning, because this arguably could have been time that you were immersed in Mother Nature. So I appreciate you taking the time for me, the podcast, and then sharing your story with the listeners as well. Before I let you go officially, I have 2 questions that I ask every single guest.
Of course.
I'm going to ask you them now. I'm going to put you on the spot, but you seem like you're able to duck and weave pretty good. So there are 2 questions. The first one is, this podcast is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Jenner, the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. I need from you 1 to 6. So 1 to half a dozen. You can do 1 or you can do 6 of your Jenner Cormier's have-tos, meaning something you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners, industry or not, need to do, whether it is surfing Lawrencetown, whether it is traveling to Europe, eating at a certain restaurant, reading a certain book, listening to a certain podcast, looking at a piece of art. What would be your 1 to 6 have-tos?
All right. I'm going to group a few together.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I think number 1, scare yourself.
Okay, I like that.
It is. And I think that kind of ties into number 2 is push yourself outside of any sort of comfort zone that you think you have.
Big time.
Number 3, put your phone down.
Ooh, good one.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Put your phone down.
After this podcast is over, put your phone down.
After the podcast is over, put your phone down and look around.
Be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to limit myself to less than 45 minutes of screen time a day on my phone.
Dope. Good job, man. That's tough as a business owner.
But, you know, I don't spend much time on Instagram. I don't really do social media. I just try to cut that out of my life, and I know it's a large part of what you do, but in the same breath, I feel like you probably have a very good way of regulating things and only spending a certain amount of time with it, because watching people with their necks crooked walking around with cell phones really bums me out. It really bums me out.
Yeah, I saw something the other day in town in Vancouver, and I thought, this is going to be like the human body in 20 years from now. This like position of this internally rotated shoulders and this tilted neck and
larger thumbs and an extra pinky finger or something. I swear to God, it's going to happen. With the way human evolution works, it will happen. Number 4, I would say look further into yourself to enjoy the moments you're in more.
Okay.
Stop taking pictures of your food.
Yes.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy the fact that somebody has been slaving over this to put it in front of you, and just sit and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Number 5, do more research about what you're consuming.
Yeah.
Whether it's buying a plane ticket to Oaxaca to see where mezcal comes from and to see these people that make it, even though it's super trendy right now.
Right.
I implore you to explore that. Go to Kentucky.
Yeah. Go
to Kentucky and see where bourbon comes from. Go to, visit these places. Go to France. Like, do more with the time that you have. Mm-hmm. I think that that's very important. And I think the last one is love yourself. Mm-hmm. Love yourself and surround yourself with the people that you want to be surrounded by, and try to nurture yourself and be comfortable with admitting that you're not okay.
Yeah.
There's this amazing movement right now out of Chicago called, I don't remember what the acronym is, but their kind of slogan or tagline is it's okay to be not okay.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
And
Yeah.
it's primarily focused in the service industry, and I think that they're doing very wonderful things, and they're really pushing to sort of regulate or establish some sort of platform for people to express, and outside of a Facebook group or some sort of social media platform, which I honestly think is just contributing to it. But I don't know if like people get together once a month, or they close their bars for this one particular day a month.
Right.
Maybe it's called, I don't know, Hospitality Mental Health Day.
Yeah.
And we just close the third week of July on a Saturday.
Who's,
You know what I mean?
why would you do that? Yeah.
Go home and cook.
Yeah, exactly.
Spend time with your family, and
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know. I'm one of the bartenders here, not to sidetrack too much, and we're super into, I don't know, like technology advancements and space and all these other things that we're talking about, and it's only a matter of time until those robots start teaching each other how to build each other, and then
Oh yeah, dude. And then what? And then what?
it's
Right?
either that or global warming, or like, you know, there's so much to be worried about and stressed about in your daily life, and I think it's important to kind of shut that stuff off.
Yeah, like you said, put your phone down, right, and be present.
Yeah.
And because there is just too much. It can be so daunting when you start thinking about all the dynamics that we deal with, even just in this industry,
Yeah.
right? But you got to pick your hill that you're willing to die on, and
Yeah.
and just stick with that.
Well, and you know, when they updated Instagram a few months ago, people almost lost their minds.
Oh God, I can't. I
You-
don't even listen to that stuff.
But you know,
yeah.
it's just like there's bigger problems in the world.
Way bigger problems. Way bigger problems.
Yeah.
The last one I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yet. So same idea,
Yeah.
but more like a bucket list thing for you to share with listeners. Things you haven't done yet that are still on your list of got to do them.
Like professionally or personally.
Anything, man. Related to the industry, not related to the industry. A trip you haven't taken, a book you haven't read, a wave you haven't catched. Anything.
Yeah.
Again, 1 to 6. Doesn't need to be 6.
My wife and I want to kind of expand our family. So
Nice.
whether that's a dog and a child or both,
Cool, man.
baby steps for sure. But that's kind of that's in my head somewhere.
Beautiful.
I'd really love to either or both surf South Africa, mostly Jeffreys Bay, because that's been one of the ways that I dream about.
Yeah.
And or heading down in and around the Indian Ocean. So Indonesia, if it doesn't fall into the ocean in the next few years. And there's a few places in Australia I'd love to surf. I'd love to visit Japan as well. So in that realm.
So travel.
Yeah.
Travel and surf.
Yeah. My younger brother and I used to travel a lot to surf, and it was a large part of my life for a very long time. And that was kind of number one priority before moving into this industry. And it was the reason I moved into this industry. So it's got this weird
Dichotomy.
not yin and yang, but you know,
it works.
I think learn to take care of myself a little bit better is a large goal for me. And then run a successful restaurant and retire.
What does successful look like for you? I find that just because it's such an easy term to throw around, successful. And
Yeah.
I ask people when they say that, does that mean you've got $500,000 in the bank? Does that mean it runs itself? Does that mean you've got 6 of them? What does that look like for you to define success?
Definition of success for me is being able to unlock the door every day.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if we're lucky or fortunate enough to, luck's not the right word to throw around. If we're fortunate enough to be able to open the door, pay our bills,
Mm-hmm.
and have staff that works here,
Mm-hmm.
if knock on wood,
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
I think that is the definition of success in my mind. We laughed about lists earlier.
Yeah.
There's a few that have done wonders for us.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Being in a remote city in Canada,
100%.
and I'm eternally grateful for it. But at the same time, I don't think that's a definition of success. I think definition of success is having a restaurant that stays open.
Mm. Yeah, I think right now, if you're in Canada and you open your doors every day, you're doing something right.
Exactly.
I don't care if you're flipping burgers or you're doing foie gras or you're plant-based, whatever. If you're if you're employing people, paying your bills, and the lights are on, you're doing something right.
And your staff's happy.
That's key.
Yeah, I think that is a definition of success for me. I mean, we've toyed around with the idea of opening other concepts or working on other things because we are creative by nature, and that's just what we enjoy doing.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily sure if that defines success. I think that opening the restaurant was the first pillar, and then keeping it open for more than what the average is the second pillar, and then just being able to close it when we're ready to close it, not because we can't pay our bills. It's amazing to see people, not to name names, like Jen Egg, who ran the Black Hoof, which is as far as I'm concerned, like a groundbreaking restaurant in Toronto
Mm-hmm.
for as many years as she did. And then she just closed it because she wanted to.
Right.
I'm tired of this concept. I want to flip it. That right there is amazing. The amount of self-control that you have to have not to be leaning on the fact that people know the Black Hoof and it's an institution,
right.
and to close the door,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of self-control, and that was very inspiring to see her do that, to just say, you know what, I'm kind of over this concept.
That's the ultimate, like, everything's my fault, right? That's the ultimate, like, I am in control.
Yeah.
Like, this is not dictated by anyone.
No.
I'm going to be the one that says yay or nay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from, for me, it doesn't come from like this elitist, like, listen to me, watch me.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, I'm very self-aware.
Yeah.
This has done what it needed to do for me. It's
Yeah.
like a relationship.
Yeah.
Friendships or intimate relationships, a lot of them come to an end, and it's not a bad thing.
No.
But it's being self-aware of, like, I've gotten what I needed to get, I've learned what I needed to learn, and now it's time for me and you and this business to move on.
And that's kind of the industry in a whole.
Yeah.
We nurture people while they're here.
100%.
And then they're off on their own.
100%.
My wife and I always joke about what we're going to do when this restaurant closes. And not that we're trying to get out of it, but every once in a while it comes up.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, and the body, like, you see some of these people that run restaurants for 50 years and they're poor bodies.
Oh God,
Their
just
poor bodies
beaten.
are just decrepit.
Yeah.
Because they're so arthritic and broken down in
Yeah.
their postures and all that kind of stuff. But we always joke about it. You know, we'll run it till it's done, and then I'm going to go work at Home Depot.
Yeah.
I'm dead
and
serious, man.
And just not think of anything.
Yeah, but just enjoy being around people and learning new things. Like, I think that's important for the brain, is just to constantly be learning and stop thinking that you know everything because you can jump on Google.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be that
Don't
person.
rely on Google. Yeah.
Put your phone away.
Maybe read a book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even, like, dive deeper than that top line.
Yep.
Learn more. Challenge yourself to learn more and to retain some of that information. And I think that's you know, you look at some of these people that live to be over 100 years old. I don't know. You and I don't know when that's going to,
Yeah, exactly.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you look at some of these people and they're constantly challenging themselves, whether it's their brain or their physical
Yeah.
shape. And we went and saw my wife's grandfather the other day, who turned 100.
Whoa, shout out Gramps.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. And he was telling us stories about the Second World War, and then he cycles
At 100.
for 2 hours a day, and he also walks 3 miles
See?
around the Veterans
Yeah.
Hospital.
Beast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That to me is what people throw this term around, like, beast. That's a beast.
2 hours a day on a stationary bike, and you're 100 years old. Like,
But that's why, right?
right? But he's constantly challenging himself, and he's talking about it, and his speech is with it, and he's very sharp, and he's going
Wow.
blind in one eye, but his body's working. His
So
brain
lucky.
is on.
So lucky for you guys to be able to be associated
Genes.
with that, right? Yeah, the genes. Well,
Yeah.
just be able just to be exposed to that and be able to ask questions.
Inspiring.
Yeah, it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring. And I want to say you've been super inspiring for me, man. I can't thank you enough. I've been so blessed with this podcast, meeting amazing people, and I'm convinced that this now, I consider you to be a friend. And there's this amazing thing when you put a microphone in front of someone. For some reason, I guarantee you and I just talked about things we probably wouldn't have spoken about if we
No.
grabbed a coffee.
Never.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being vulnerable. I appreciate you talking about things, not only just for you personally, but for this industry as a whole. And not that I needed to, or my intention was for you to be a voice for this space, but I do consider you to be a voice in this space. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show today, and you completely knocked it at the park. And one thing that you mentioned that really stuck with me in your have-tos was getting uncomfortable. And there's a quote that my coach shared with me, and it has stuck with me ever since. And it's Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, people wish to be comfortable, but only so much as they are uncomfortable is there any hope for them.
Yeah.
And that to me just speaks so loudly to our society today. Like, go get uncomfortable. Everyone wants to be comfortable, but
Yeah.
if you do that, there literally is no hope for you.
People are afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you don't fail, you're not even trying.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to get something that you don't have, you have to do something that you've never done before.
Yeah.
You know,
that's just the truth.
But it is. And
Yeah.
and you look at, you know, to take baseball for an example. These guys that break these home run records, every year. They don't talk about the strikeouts.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't.
Yeah.
All they talk about is the home runs and the glory.
Yeah.
You know, look at guys, not to go too far back, Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
How many failed experiments
But
do
they're not-
you
yeah,
think he had before
exactly.
he invented the light bulb?
Yeah. So true.
you know, and it's like, be afraid, but be comfortable with failing because it is a learning opportunity.
So true.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great spot to end it off on.
Thanks
Before
for
I let you
having
go,
me.
yeah, man,
Yeah.
you did amazing. Thank you so much. Before I let you go officially, if people do want to reach out that aren't local, how best to get in touch with you or with the restaurant or with Annie? How best to engage with Bar Kismet or Restaurant Kismet?
You can look us up on Instagram,
Right.
social media.
Yeah.
It's just at Bar Kismet, and or you can send me an email personally or to the restaurant. It's just jennercormier@gmail or info@barkismet. And you know, it's funny. You throw the microphone in front of my face. I've told you things today that I haven't told a lot of people, and I think that's the first step, is just letting go of the inhibitions of being afraid or being ridiculed by somebody, and you know, if anybody needs to talk, if they just need an outlet, they don't want me to respond, you know, just send me an email. Pick up the phone and call the restaurant. Like I tell this to my staff all the time. I am always here to help because, you know, I know how important it is to have somebody to talk to. Because if not, your brain's is your own worst enemy.
Yeah, for sure.
And once you get in your head, you're trapped there. So
whether or not you know it, the law of reciprocity is alive and well in you. And the law says you give without the intentions of even receiving anything back. So I implore you for giving so much. And that's what you are doing. And in the 1 hour and 20 minutes that we've sat here, I've learned enough about you to understand that you are giving so much, not only to this restaurant, your staff, but this industry, and I can only assume your relationship with Annie as well. And I wish you guys the best of luck, not only with the business, but the expansion of your family. And I want for you to carve out that time and make it a non-negotiable where you're finding yourself in your wetsuit and in the ocean.
I think they should rename this industry to the reciprocity industry.
They should. Yeah, they should. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a good tagline.
Okay, guys, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in as you do week after week. I truly appreciate, love you all. That is Jenner. I am Brad. This is the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. You can check me next week for a brand new episode. And until that time, be good and do good. That's it, man. We did it.
Thank you.
You crushed it.
Thanks
Well
for
done.
having me.
Yeah, man.